Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sons Show. That's at the Loyal Sons on all the social medias. Follow us there and follow us wherever you get your podcasts for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love being back on the bubble and hate bracketology, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sons Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt athletics fix, brought to you by Section 5. We're about a day removed, a little less than 24 hours removed from the Pitt Panthers' huge win on the road in Charlottesville against Tony Bennett's Virginia Cavaliers. Another top 25 road win on the resume. Pitt firmly on the bubble. I don't know how firmly you can be on the bubble, but Pitt's in tournament talks. We're approaching March, and we're in the mix of things. A long cry from starting 1-5 in the ACC. Fellas, how we feeling today?
Yesterday was great. Today I'm tipping more towards mad again because we didn't move up as much as I wanted us to. So it's weird that it used to just be the first four out, and that was a big deal. And after that, you wouldn't know how close you were really. But now we have the next four out, and then we have like considered. So there's layers, and we're not in a high enough layer yet. So we're getting there, though. So I'm not going to be too upset about a win, but things will still make me mad.
Does it say more about the current state of college basketball and the dependency on like metric-based rankings, or more about us as Pitt fans that we allowed ourselves like 30 seconds to enjoy Pitt beating the hell out of a ranked team at home before we immediately went to like goddamn Joe Lunardi?
It's definitely partly a Pitt thing. That's something we always do. We are never happy with anything. It could always be better, but I think there's a consensus at this point where people hate Joe Lunardi. Whenever I was growing up, I thought it was like cool. Whenever Joe Lunardi would pop up and be like, "Hey, this team's got a shot now," and I'd be like, "Oh, that's good to know." But
yeah,
now,
it was also
I don't know if it's
cool when Pitt was like a 2 or 3 seed perennial.
True.
And we never had to like worry about the bubble. Like that didn't dictate our happiness. It was like, oh, this tiny school in the middle of nowhere's making a run for it. Good for them. Not us though. We're in there.
So maybe that's a big part of it. I did not consider.
Joe Lunardi's also in like the most impossible position. I mean, he still pisses me off.
Yeah.
For the same exact reasons. But Squid, you were saying this yesterday about like his mentions have to be hilarious because it's just endless people just like, oh, you have them ranked ahead of us, even though we beat this team and they lost to them on a neutral site. It's like there's not pleasing anyone with the job he has to do. I'm not gonna let him off the hook that easy because I'm still seeing like these teams that are almost sitting at 500, sitting on the bubble or in the tournament right now. But yeah, he has just like an impossible job. In terms of making people happy. Also, in terms of getting things correct, I'm pretty sure he's ranked like fairly low in the grand scheme of like bracketologists.
Let's not let Joe Lunardi piss us off too
much
just yet. Let's talk about how
we'll get there.
It was beating Virginia.
I actually have a bullet point in our agenda to shit on Joe Lunardi. But that was supposed to be near the end of basketball talk.
And we will, but I don't think you needed to include the note. That was just sort of going to happen. That'd be like that would be like if you put in the prep notes like talk about Pitt. We were already going to.
You're right. Okay. Pitt beat UVA last night. Let's talk about the game. A couple just notes on how big of a win this really was. Pitt snaps Virginia's 23-game home winning streak. That was the longest in the country going into last night. Snapped an 8-game winning streak for Virginia. First team to score over 70 points in a game at Virginia in 48 games against the Cavaliers. And this is a team who held Miami to just 38 points 8 days before last night's game. So Pitt kind of just went in to Charlottesville and did something that no one does to the Virginia Cavaliers.
It was crazy. I had thoughts creep into my mind before that game. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is just a good basketball team at this point. Like things are clicking, know their roles, guys are stepping up. Blake Hinson carrying the team. But on the other hand, it was, well, it's Virginia. They're probably going to give us hell on defense, and if we lose, so be it. So I let those thoughts overtake the this is a good team thoughts.
Yeah, this could have, going into this, I think we all accepted the fact that this could very well just be your typical Virginia boa constrictor, just strangulating the hell out of whichever team they play and winning a game 42-38. Because that's just what they do. They won a national championship doing that.
Yeah, I kind of figured Pitt's only prayer was Blake Hinson hoisting shots up from 30 feet and them all going in. He didn't have to pull from that deep last night, and he got it done in a variety of ways. But I just felt like Virginia's so good at making things tough on teams defensively that really we were just going to need to heave up prayers and they would have to go in. But Pitt did shoot as a team 14 of 31 from three. Pitt shoots a ton of threes. Sometimes they make a ton of them like last night. Sometimes they don't. The trend a little more lately has been they're making those shots, and they're a really tough team to beat when those shots are going in. But Blake Hinson, obviously the straw that stirs the drink for Pitt's offense, 27 points, 5 of 13 from three. And we saw some buckets from Blake that earlier in the year didn't seem to be going down. It was that bully ball, try to get downhill. And so many times this year, we've seen those just turn into charges or ball that he just kind of loses on his way to the hoop. But last night, everything was working for him. He was using that big body of his, posting guys up, splitting double teams, stepping through. Just an absolute masterclass by Blake Hinson.
I'd say this might be his second best game in ACC play, just because the Duke game's number one, obviously. But after that, he's had high-scoring games. I felt like this was his most efficient and effective game because he took a lot of shots, but there might have only been one that I thought was like a hero ball, like I'm firing this no matter what, and it didn't work out. Everything else, and like you said, it was all over the court too. Very under control game from Blake. Let the game come to him and stepped up when we needed a bucket.
Yeah, and the Duke game was like vintage Blake Hinson, just going 7 for 7 from three. But like this game last night was like he was picking his spots. Let me post up this guy at the elbow. First bucket of the game, a little turnaround mid-ranger that you don't see too much from Blake. And then, yeah, it was when they needed a bucket the most. Blake steps up and he goes and gets one. And really, once again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but he was just kind of throwing his weight around. And it was like Virginia wasn't ready for that. Even on the late tip in on the break when Ish got the steal, missed the layup, Blake probably could have got called for a shove in the back, but like the dude he pushed out of the way went flying. And it was like they weren't ready for grown man Blake Hinson.
How much weight did he lose this offseason?
Allegedly.
I think you get where I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know. He's still pretty. I mean, he looks great. I do watch some videos from last year, and he definitely is a little slimmer, a little more toned, but he's still a big body. A lot of basketball players don't deal with guys like that. I actually saw another tweet of his football playing days, and every time I see those, I'm just like, I'm just imagining Blake Hinson lining up at tight end because he looks like he could still run a few routes here and there.
I bet he could get 80 yards on a single drive in a game and then not see the field the rest of the game for Pitt.
Maybe under the old regime.
Sorry. It's February. We don't need that right now.
Cade Bell would give him the ball 12 times a game. I'm sure of it.
Cade Bell would make him an All-American. I have so much blind faith in Cade Bell. Anyway, we're talking about Jeff Capel.
Yeah, we have blind faith in him again.
Yeah.
We thankfully procrastinated on an episode. Was that over a month ago?
I
Might
wanna
be less
say
than a
it
month
was-
ago at this point. I feel like it was in January. We were like, uh-oh, it might be time for a how bad are we going to be episode.
Yeah, it would have been right around a month because the second loss to Syracuse was January 16th, and that was rock bottom for this season. So I believe it was right after that game that we considered doing the episode.
I don't think people really ever give basketball coaches credit. They only, it's every sport, but more common in basketball than football, maybe, because there's less X's and O's. When Pitt looked bad, it was like this team they don't know what they're doing. They're just out there running around playing individualistic basketball. And Capel got grilled for that. There are a lot of people that jumped off the bandwagon, but not us, about a month ago at that time. Last night's game was an extremely well-coached game. They were making adjustments that were noticeable to the common man like me. Like I'd see him put in Guillermo and run different pick and pops and kick it to him, and he'd make a pass. And defensively, Virginia's a real tough team to hang with all the off-ball action. So they handled it really, really well. And I mean, Capel and his bag, big win, much needed.
Yeah, there was a sequence last night when Guillermo was in the game where first possession, they run a little high screen and roll, and Guillermo gets the ball. No one even near him. Some type of miscommunication on Virginia's end. He turns around, gets an easy layup. Next possession now, same exact thing. They get him the ball near the free throw line, and Virginia collapses, and he swings it to Jalen Lowe, hits a three. And it was at that point where it was like, okay, Pitt has a counter for everything Virginia's trying to throw at them. And I think Tony Bennett made mention of it in the post-game presser, just saying that, Pitt's a really good offensive team, and they do a lot of stuff with the high pick and roll, and a lot of things that they can do off of it that are really hard to guard, especially when they're making shots. So I was waiting for all the people who love to flood our mentions or flood the timeline with Jeff Capel doesn't coach. He's just having them roll the ball out and play. But it was very apparent last night that Pitt had a good game plan going into that one. They were ready for what Virginia was going to throw at them, and they had a counterpunch for everything Virginia tried to do.
I couldn't find exactly when we planned to do the how much is Jeff Capel's buyout episode. But what I did find is about 100 references to Lloyd's of Hazelwood. And on December 14th, somebody told Squid that Pitt offered Kyle McCord $1.7 million to come to Pitt. So I'm sure those two things aren't related at all. But but no, I cannot figure out when we were planning to fire Jeff Capel ourselves. And I'm glad we didn't.
And I'm glad we didn't actually offer Kyle McCord $1.7 million, allegedly.
Well, we don't know if we did, but he certainly didn't take it.
Sure.
But yeah, there's something to be said about the way these teams clearly have gotten better the past 2 years under Jeff Capel's watch, especially when you look at the first couple years of his career. These teams fell apart.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. The Xavier Johnson years, it was here comes February, time to lose out. The one year we beat Duke at the Pitt, I remember feeling on top of the world. I thought that was the turning point. Fast forward 2 weeks, and the whole team is in shambles, like literally in shambles on and off the floor. So I like this new trend of maybe you don't start off the best, but come the meat of your conference season, you're clicking, you're ready for March, you're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, the Capel collapse had become almost a signature of Jeff Capel's tenure at Pitt. And yeah, people were starting to say that they were having that collapse early this year. And quite the opposite. Pitt's won 6 of 7. They've bounced back. Started at 1-5 in the ACC. Now they sit at 7-6. And quite frankly, Pitt is firmly in the discussion for making a run back at March Madness this year.
Yeah, we'll say this. We just said things are looking bright. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves or potentially jinx anything, but we control our own destiny. And if we don't have a real good run down the stretch, I'd consider that a collapse because there's a couple of competitive games, and we also have a couple of games that we definitely are the better team the way we're playing. Like Boston College, Florida State, Louisville next game. Those are easy wins. You got to win those. We can't have a slip up like last year. Last year we lost to Notre Dame late. Still snuck in despite it. I don't think we can afford that this year. We can't afford another loss to a bottom feeder.
Yeah, I had sort of repressed that memory, and then it came back last night. There was a minor effort last year to blow it.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, we were in great position, and then we did everything in our power to make it a little bit interesting. So that makes me feel even better about this year's team. They're playing hot. They're getting the momentum rolling. And we were in a similar spot last year as we are now, and kind of fucked up a little bit towards the end last year. If we can just keep winning the games that we are supposed to, I think we can ride the momentum into the tournament, maybe, please.
Yeah, I think when there was 10 games left in the season, so what that would have been, going back to the Notre Dame game, figured we had to go 8-2. 8-2 felt like a good spot to be in to give yourself a chance to get in. Now you using that same logic, finish 5-2. I mean, two of the tougher games I thought were going to be at NC State and at Virginia, winning both of those. Now you have, like you said, Squid, we got Louisville coming up on Saturday. Don't want to look past them, but like it's Louisville at home. Just fucking win. Wake Forest at Wake. Wake's undefeated on the road. That would be another big one. But like, all right, you get past Louisville on Saturday, and it's like 4-2 down the stretch. Super doable with the teams remaining on the schedule. Maybe you need to get one in the ACC tournament, but yeah, Pitt's these last two games have put them in a very good spot to give themselves a chance to make a run here. And I mean, we started 1-5 in the ACC. Pitt could theoretically, and not even just theoretically, realistically be top 4 in the ACC standings by Saturday night.
Yeah, too bad that's not worth anything.
Because it's the ACC.
Because it's the ACC, which apparently is just now like a mid-major, apparently.
Yeah, Boise State will win the ACC, is what I've heard.
Right. But Pitt could get in the top 4. Wake plays at UVA on Saturday at noon. Pitt obviously has Louisville with a Wake loss and a Pitt win. Pitt would be in 4th place in the ACC, which would put them in a position to have a double bye for the ACC tournament. A lot of season left. Obviously, they can, drop one here or there. Other teams can go on a run, but Pitt's very firmly in a spot to potentially play themselves into a double bye in the ACC tournament. I'm sure as we approach that, there will be discussion about, well, will it make more sense to be a 5 seed and maybe add another easy win on your resume? I don't know what that looks like, but all I know is I would love to see Pitt playing on Friday or even Saturday night come ACC tournament time. Something we haven't had.
Would be cool. But while we're on the topic of the ACC tournament, the ACC in general, that is something I wanted to touch on because it was a very hot topic last night. Like the lack of and it's been a hot topic lately. The lack of respect that the ACC is getting from the national media. I think when you look at what happened last night, there were far too many national media members that said, a top 25 ACC school went down to an unranked one. ACC is going to ACC, right? Like it was viewed as almost a negative on the ACC. I don't know. I might be wrong here, but I feel like when historically strong conferences cannibalize each other, the way that the ACC has the last few years, they're usually given the benefit of the doubt.
It's a gauntlet every night.
It's a gauntlet. Gauntlet. So tough, so deep, but instead it's like an excuse to call us weak and inconsistent and to weight these dumb metrics and rankings against the ACC.
I think it started whenever Duke or UNC would have a down year. And if Duke or UNC wasn't the top, then you'd say, weird year, even though maybe Miami would be really good or NC State would have a huge year. But this year, they're top 10 teams. And Virginia, I don't know why it took so long for them to be ranked. I don't get how a 19-5 prior to last night Virginia team was only ranked 21, considering they won a national championship a few years ago and are consistently like a 21 team. I just find that odd that they're getting disrespected. And I don't know, it trickles down. I think some of these teams in the middle of the pack, for whatever reason, are being scoffed at. But for the same reason, teams are giving like the Big East the benefit of the doubt. It's like, Villanova's down, but they're still tough. It's like, why? They aren't. Whenever Pitt beats Virginia, it's a huge upset. Wow, the big teams at the top of the ACC suck. But if Kansas loses to TCU, it's, wow, this conference is so deep. So into the season, the ESPNs, the CBSs, all the big names, have their favorites, and they just want to be proved right.
Yeah, I was watching it was kind of good to see the ACC network. I mean, obviously this is their job, but like going to bat for the ACC basketball conference. Mark Packer was actually absolutely giving it to Joe Lunardi before the game started last night, just talking about Lunardi and his fantasy land in his basement, yada, 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 like really giving it to him. And then Taylor Tannenbaum, his co-host, she was made a really good point about how just the narrative that gets put around these conferences. Like last year, it was, Duke and UNC, the blue bloods of this conference are down. That should be an indictment against the entire conference. But then you look at a Big Ten, and she was saying, who would you consider a blue blood in the Big Ten? Maybe a Michigan State. Well, they're 15-9 this year. Maybe in Indiana, they stink. They're 14-10. Michigan is in last place. They're 8-17 in the Big Ten. So it's funny how different conferences get different benefits of the doubt. And I really don't even get it. Is it just the cool thing? Is it just the it thing to say for national media heads? It's just like, oh yeah, ACC, they stink because, well, obviously they do. Don't you see the ratings?
Is it an expectation versus reality thing? Like, wow, we have this conference that has Duke and North Carolina, and we're adding Syracuse and Pitt to it, and then Syracuse and Pitt took forever to get their footing when the Big East kind of spat out a lot of its top dogs, and when the ACC added all of those extra schools, it hadn't lived up to that, so it just became years of like, well, actually, this conference sucks.
Well, here's the thing: the ACC is always delivering in March Madness. But however you're going to look at it, if it's first round wins, they have like the second most in the last decade. If you Final Fours,
Squid, I'm so glad you brought that up.
If you have some numbers, please rattle them off.
Yeah, I did.
If the ACC was getting 6-7 teams in every year and they were all flopping, sure, you can say you aren't as good in the regular season and you aren't good in the tournament for those that do get in. But I don't think either is the case, and that is the confusing part.
Yeah, so Squid, you're exactly correct. The ACC has, despite lower representation the past few years than it's accustomed to, brought it in the tournament. So if you look at the last 3 years, They are second in Sweet 16 appearances with 6, first in Elite 8 appearances with 4, first in Final 4 appearances with 3, first in wins over Ken Palm expectation at 6.2.
Oh, you mean the
Holy Grail
model? The model didn't predict us accurately. It was underrating the ACC. You don't say.
Could you believe? Honestly, I shouldn't have even read that one off because, of course, the conference that is negatively weighted by Ken Palm is going to outperform Ken Palm. But here's a better one, and it's basically the same statistic: 6.3 wins over seed expectation, 23 total wins, which is second, and this is despite only being the 4th highest in bids out of there are 6 power conferences in college basketball. Technically, I know they don't use that term as much as football. Of the 6, we are 4th in bids over the last 3 years with 17, and yet we have outperformed literally everybody. And you know, if you're not a fan of Pitt, first of all, why are you listening to this podcast other than to torture yourself? And you want to say, like, well, that was the last 3 years. The ACC still sucks this year. No. At the start of February, they were 8-3 against the Big 12, which is, by all accounts, the best conference in college basketball. They have the second most 15-plus win teams and the most 19-plus win teams. So I am asking you from the bottom of my heart, why does this conference suck? Why? Why does it air quotes suck? Why are we only expected to sneak 4 teams in, and why are our blue bloods, you know, being underranked? Why are our middle tier teams that have shown fight and scrap and, you know, given our quad 1 teams hell all season, why are we being treated like the bottom of the barrel?
ESPN jockeying for that Big Ten SEC football money.
I've seen some tweets that the Big 12 cracked the code to everything, all the stupid abbreviations, net, Ken Palm, you name it, by doing nothing but scheduling the little sisters of the poor's blind younger sisters and just absolutely pulverizing them in the non-conference. So they get the benefit of racking up all these points against no-name schools, and then they're all elevated a bit. That way, when you lose to those teams, you don't fall as much because
it's a good loss.
Playing good team, yeah. So
a good loss, which is weighed very high for some reason.
Yeah, anything that gives you credit for losing in any sport is just useless, in my opinion.
I think the epitome of it. Last year, I think it was West Virginia because they were like below 500 and on the bubble because they beat like Baylor and some other top 10 team. They're like, oh, well, if you look at their losses, they've only lost to good teams and they have these 2 good wins. But this year, it's definitely the Big East getting the benefit of the doubt. And I think the biggest example of that is Villanova. They're 13-11. And if you look at anybody's bubble picture, they are probably first 4 out, maybe next 4 out. They're always listed. They're always in contention. And you heard that right. They are 13-11. So would you guess that they have a lot of really good wins and like no bad losses? Is that what you would guess?
I mean, they has to be, right?
Yeah, I would assume.
They did beat North Carolina, so that's unfortunate for our narrative. But
I would have left that out if I were you. So credit to you. I would simply have not said that.
But they did beat North Carolina. You know what they did to follow that up? They lost to St. Joseph's. They lost to Drexel. They lost to St. John's. And prior to that, they lost to Pennsylvania. Those are all very, very bad teams. And since that North Carolina win, they've gone on a 5-game losing streak. I mean, like, they've beaten Providence and like DePaul and Seton Hall. Like, congratulations, but it's not a tournament resume. I don't care how you dice it up. They don't have good wins. They have bad losses, but they're in a conference that's perceived to be really good by some metrics. So they get all these extra, they get like extra credit for being in a conference.
Yeah.
Like, are you telling me that Pitt wouldn't be 13-11 in this Big East?
I would hope so.
I think they would be.
They would.
The other thing I don't get is the way that away wins are weighted. Like, everybody knows playing at home in generic football game is worth 3 points if you're making a line. So why is it that, like, oh, you went into, like, you beat this terrible basketball program, but you beat them in their house, so you get to move up like 7 spots in net. Like, where does that come from? I believe in home field advantage, but to a certain extent, like, your two teams playing basketball.
I don't know. Pitt's been good on the road this year, so I like that they weigh that.
Forget everything I just said.
I agree with that, but I think some of these stats are so new because we weren't talking about net 5 years ago. Like, I don't know when exactly it came onto the scene, but it was never like you showed this team's profile on Selection Sunday. They never showed their net until recently. It was always RPI. And then people are like, oh, RPI isn't good enough, so let's go with this other one. Oh, let's go with this. So it's whatever's new and whatever they think is smarter. But eventually it'll get tweaked. For example,
net won't exist in 4 years. There will be a new acronym.
Yeah. Ken Palm will be out. It'll be like Ken Palm Plus. And he's like, well, actually, this is better. But just to focus on like the quad win system, like, which is based on net. If you beat a team on the road and they're in the top 75 in net, that is a quad 1 win. If you beat a top 30 net team in your own house, that's a quad 1 win. So, sure, winning on the road is harder. That makes sense. But the way it's currently broken down, the top 75 net rankings, if Pitt were to march into Connecticut or Purdue, and actually I have that backwards. If Purdue or Connecticut would march into the Pete and Pitt would beat them, quad 1 win for Pitt. Yes, hooray. If Pitt traveled across the country to UC Irvine, have you guys watched UC Irvine play this year?
No.
Yeah, nobody has. But
okay.
They have like an above average record, but it's still UC Irvine. If Pitt goes to UC Irvine and wins in their backyard, that's a quad 1 win. Valued the same. Beating Purdue or Connecticut at home is the same thing as beating UC Irvine on the road, according to like the quadrant win system. So the next time you see, oh, well, this team is 2-6 in quad 1 and this team is 4-3, like, you got to look a little bit deeper than that, because it's not all just beating the best teams. It needs tweaked. It's stupid.
Yeah, so Dylan, I'm going to stand by what I said, even if it does actually go against Pitt, that the weight of winning in somebody else's house is augmented to a degree that it shouldn't in college basketball.
Fair enough. I'm going to keep hand-picking stats as we get closer and closer to Selection Sunday. Whatever benefits Pitt. Wow. This is just our first day back on the bubble.
Yeah, let's save a little bit of ammunition for next time. I've got like a binder full of Mountain West propaganda I need to address, but Maybe next week.
Yeah,
We might have unloaded the clip.
we
No,
really did.
Joe
But
Lunardi will make us mad again. Don't worry. There'll be a new team next week.
that's the thing. Bracketology is the gift that keeps on giving. So we'll have plenty to say. I just want to leave it on this note because I have the tab pulled up here. And this just reminds me of last year when we had to win a play-in game to get an 11 seed and then go play a Big 12 Iowa State team. Do you guys know what Iowa State's record was last year?
The 17-12.
You're close, but that's a little. They play more games than that.
But 17 wins.
They had 19 wins. 19
Wow.
and 15 is what they finished the season. So going into that game against Pitt, they were 19 and 14. Say what you want.
And-
Strength of schedule, I get it. Whatever. But a 6 seed?
And didn't Pitt beat the piss out of that team?
Yeah, they won. They won by 18, actually.
Huh. So it's almost like you are what your record says you are sometimes.
Just remember that the next time someone says this barely above 500 team from a good conference deserves a shot over a team that actually wins a lot of their games.
We all know someone who's trying to figure out the next steps in their life. They're looking for something new, or maybe just a break. What if there's a job opportunity for those looking to make a change that requires no experience and pays up to $19.50 an hour to start, plus 401k and healthcare benefits? Whether someone you know is in between jobs, transitioning careers, or even just a recent grad or current student on break, Haddad Accelerated Delivery is an Amazon delivery partner that offers flexible opportunities to those looking for work. Whether it's part-time or full-time, long-term, or just until you figure out your next big move, Haddad Accelerated Delivery offers the stability and professional development you need. If you know someone who might benefit from talking to the team at Haddad, have them text 464646 to apply. That's a text to 464646 to apply. We're going to get there, boys. We're going to get there. Final Thoughts is once again brought to you by Guerrera Law. Dylan, what is the best and worst thing to happen to you this week?
Best thing yet to come, but I'm leaving for vacation on Saturday.
Ooh.
Worst thing that's happened to me this week, it's just gotten cold again. I thought we were in the clear.
Where are you going on vacation?
Going on a cruise.
Yo.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
I think the worst thing that happened to me this week is knowing that friends of mine will be enjoying something that great and that I will continue to be here in the cold. But hey, that's life, man. Some days you're chilling on a cruise ship. Some days you're sitting here in Pittsburgh in the cold. Ups and downs, highs and lows. Some days you are winning at life. Some days you're getting rear-ended in Oakland traffic. And, if the latter were ever to happen, if you were to ever experience a time where, an accident occurs, you are the victim of an injustice, and law firms aren't treating you fairly, it is your responsibility to pick up the phone and call Guido Guerrera, who will help turn your losses into ACC championship wins. You can reach Guido at 412-229-7757 or go to his website at guerreralaw.com. That's GURRERALAW.com. He's licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. I, for one, think it's even funnier that we've never gotten good at that ad read, and we've only done it like 50 times. I think it might be better like advertisement for Guido that like we've never figured out a way to pull it off smoothly. I like to think people listen to it and are like, oh yeah, they're about to fuck this up and it's going to be funny for us.
That was one take. We are getting better at it.
Yeah,
I mean mostly you, because I just sit here and try not to laugh every time.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can get that as a one taker, I think you did great. So good job, David.
Thank you. So Moving onwardly from that, Guido, I'm so sorry. Final thoughts. Either of you in particular want to go first?
I'll kick it off because I think you guys have a couple fun ones to discuss, but I'll talk about something that we have to discuss. It's our responsibility as a Pitt Sports podcast, but we've been beaten down by this football team enough. Taekwon Underwood's gone. He left, going to the Patriots, worked with his buddy Jared Mayo, leaving the wide receiver room. I know this offseason there was some skepticism. Thought maybe he would leave for another college job. Maybe the Syracuse job had been thrown around. And we thought we had retained him, and that was a big plus. He developed quite the talented young wide receiver room, brought in a really good freshman class last year. There's a lot of hope there with Kenny Johnson, Lamar Seymour, Izzy Polk, Zion Fowler-El. But now he is gone, and Pitt has to fill another position coach position prior to spring ball, just about a week or so after losing Chuck Partridge to the NFL as well.
And it happened during halftime of the Super Bowl.
During Usher.
What a news dump that was. It's tough, man. But, like, can you blame any of these coaches for wanting to go to the NFL?
No, actually. I was going to maybe throw a but in there, some type of disclaimer, but no, I feel like, I mean, the NFL has probably always been more attractive than coaching college kids, I would think, maybe outside of like job security, but I don't even know if that would be the case here. But like with all the added, hate to be old guy yelling at clouds, but NIL and transfer portal, I think it's just less appealing than it's ever been to coach in college when you have the chance to get a pro job.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously I think that stuff contributes, and it contributes quite a bit. But the more I've thought about it since Coach Partridge left, the more I think that, like, the transfer portal and NIL has become a scapegoat because people just love to complain about it, especially the old heads. And a lot of coaches are, you know, old heads. So they want to blame it on that. But I mean, if you think about it, college has always been an infinitely worse just like occupation to have than the NFL level. You get like 1 month off a year, and you get, it's off in quotes because, you know, so I'm referring to July, you know, you still want to be like cognizant of what's going on because you just had a big recruiting push in June and the season is right around the corner. You're weeks from heading to camp. Meanwhile, in the NFL, pretty much between the draft and July, you just get to chill out and work at your leisure. Roster retention has always been easier in the NFL because they sign a legal contract that says, I will play for you for this amount of time. And in the NCAA, it's a lot more difficult. I mean, recruitment, you could start and end there. You only have to recruit a little bit in the NFL. You know, if there's a free agent coming, you give them a pitch, you know, but it's mostly going to be financial. And that's usually the GM's job. But college football, recruitment is your life 24/7. You are flying all over the country, knowing a thing that takes a lot out of you and trying to convince kids to play for you. I mean, it's just a worse job. And I think, you know, we just like to harp on the two new, shiny, scary things. But it's always been worse, and we're just feeling it a lot worse now because we are Pitt fans, and it has now happened to us twice in 2 weeks. And also because Jeff Hafley blamed NIL and the portal on his decision to go to the NFL, even though he, like, you coach at Boston College and your job is very much on the line this season. So I think that might have had something to do with it. I don't know.
I like Taekwon Underwood. It seemed like the team did too. I know the receivers haven't blown anybody away with their production since he got here, but
Probably not all their fault.
And true. There are others responsible for the ball getting to them. But even in Cade Bell's opening presser, if you listen to it with his beautiful accent, he said the first thing he noticed about Taekwon Underwood is how much the players loved him. And I was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad we still have Taekwon Underwood around then. And then I think it was 4, maybe 5 days later, he's gone. So for that reason, I think it sucks. Despite the quality of the coach on the field, it's always good to have coaches that players like, because that is like 75% of the battle. So hopefully we fill that job with somebody maybe from the Carolinas, because that seems to be a trend.
Yeah. They did just bring on Tim Doust, who was a ECU defensive ends coach, to fill the massive shoes of Chuck Partridge. So another win for the Carolinas.
I've seen tweets. I'm not familiar with Tim Doust. I looked up his resume and it seems all fine and well, but I saw some tweets that people thought that he was going to be Narduzzi's choice as D-line coach before he hired Charlie Partridge. So I guess it might have came down to those two. And he ultimately picked Charlie Partridge. So it's a guy that Narduzzi is familiar with. He's been buddies with him. They've coached together at some point.
It was Cincinnati and another place.
I think it was Northern Illinois, probably.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
So some familiarity there. Have yet to do a whole lot of research on the guy.
We don't expect you to, Squid.
Yeah.
It's all right. We've got.
I let you all down.
It's February.
Last week I came prepared. I told you the offensive line coach looked like Buzz Lightyear.
Doust also looks like an insane football guy too, by the way.
Great. I like him already.
Just like if Patrick Starr did 10 years in the military.
That's a visual.
That is a visual. Squid, do you have a final thought?
Yes, my final thought was the Super Bowl happened, and we should all talk about a different element of the Super Bowl, because there were like a bajillion, a lot more than usual.
I'd like to talk about the spread so that I can make you talk about your consumption habits on Sunday night.
Yeah, by spread, you don't mean like Vegas's line. You mean...
Oh, no. The whole point of the Super Bowl, if your team's not in it, is to shove yourself full of grease and cheese and apparently enough Mountain Dew to kill a lesser man. Right, Squid?
Yeah. So for whatever reason, we ordered a bunch of Mountain Dew for the party. We're like, hey, I DoorDashed a few liters of Mountain Dew to the party because someone was like, hey, we need some pop. Just got to mix up the beverage variety. Had a beer full of fridge, but nothing non-alcoholic. So
beer full
fridge. Beer full of fridge. Yeah, a fridge full of beer. Jesus Christ. So I'm like, I'll get some Mountain Dews. And not in Tim Salem's honor, but could have been. I drank nearly 2 liters of Mountain Dew.
You're a sicko. Why did you do that?
Did you also honor Tim Salem by kind of letting it rip on Twitter afterwards?
No, but I'm thinking about it. Just different topics than he might choose.
No, the only thing you let rip is the Mountain Dew back out of your stomach and esophagus onto yourself. Is that something I recall correctly?
Yeah, look. So
you threw up?
I didn't throw up. I just spat up. Let me set the scene. So I'm one who will always commit to a bit. Easy to be peer pressured. So everyone thought it was funny that whenever we needed a big play, it's like, hey, third down, need to stop here for our bet to hit. I would just take a gulp of Mountain Dew.
For good luck.
And that went on for about 3 quarters. And I started to be like, you know what? I feel like I could go without any more Mountain Dew. And then the Chiefs scored. I think it was the Valdez-Scantling touchdown. So I'm like, I'm just going to polish off the rest of this bottle.
It didn't help that everybody in the room thought that we all had money on Valdez-Scantling scoring. And then we later found out that nobody had a dime on it. So that rush of, excitement didn't help.
Yeah, so I started guzzling it down, and I started to laugh, and then I just kind of spat it up into a corner of the room, and everyone thought I threw up, but fear not, I can handle my dew.
Clearing the air there.
Yeah. So enough about me drinking Mountain Dew. Is there anything else you want to talk about Super Bowl wise, or are we good to move on?
I don't know. I'm pretty good with where we're at here.
Dan Marino and a bunch of commercials.
No, there's a lot of Pittsburgh connections, but I'm good. That's making you
Taylor
tell
on
that's...
too much.
Taylor had the second most screen time of a non-participant in that game behind Jeff Goldblum. Because he just fired up 3 commercials and made it on the Jumbotron, showed him in his box. Loyal son of whichever high school he went to. I want to say Mount Lebanon feels right.
I feel like every real celebrity from Pittsburgh went to Mount Lebanon.
Yeah. It's almost like generational wealth helps you get places in life. Oh my God, he's from West Homestead.
Nailed it.
Wow. I take back a lot of things I just said. Where did he go to high school?
While David does his research on.
Oh, he went to Dice.
Okay. Well, also the other place where all the famous people from Pittsburgh go.
There we go.
All right, David, final thoughts. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. So big day. We're recording this on Wednesday, the 24th. Big holiday.
It is not Wednesday, the 24th.
The 14th. I saw the 1 and the 4 in the corner of my screen and skipped the 1. It's Wednesday, the 14th of February, and we all know that means Ash Wednesday. But you two might not know that. I don't know if. Do you guys do Ash Wednesday? Is it?
Personally, no.
No, I didn't know if it was a non-Catholic thing. Anyway, we're going to skip that part because it's not the important part. That means that starting this Friday, the churches are busting open the fish fries again. And this is big. This is huge. One of the greatest culinary experiences in America, the Catholic elementary school cafeteria fish fry. Let me paint you all a picture listening. This is what we get back in our lives this week. You walk down into the basement of a church, past a troop of Girl Scouts selling Girl Scout cookies, and you scoff at the fact that they have risen again by $1 a box for the 20th year in a row. You walk into the doors into a basement just made of that beige cement bricks.
Yep.
Past 20 crayon paintings, crayon depictions of Jesus on the cross made by 37-year-olds. You get into line. A 31-year-old with 5 kids hands you the best fish sandwich you've ever had in your life. You have a change of heart. You grab a box of cookies on the way out, and you have yourself the best meal of your life. That's what we get back, and I'm so excited.
I was never a huge fish fry guy. Maybe a hot take, but Kretzler's in the North Hills.
No.
Elite fish sandwich, but it's gone now. So
you're objecting that. You're objecting to that, right? Because he's referencing a fish sandwich from a restaurant.
Correct. And now I understand, we have cultural differences because you are Protestant and I am Catholic, and we've worked past that in our friendship. But you gotta go to a church. It's like I'm sure a restaurant does it well, but a restaurant does a lot of things well. There's a novelty to going to a place,
Getting in a styrofoam box
that brings back childhood trauma and getting the best meal you've had in weeks.
Yeah, I'm sold. Where's your go-to? What are some of your go-to churches in the diocese?
So my alma mater was St. Sebastian's in the North Hills. That doesn't exist anymore.
Really?
Well, it's Holy Family, I think.
Gotcha.
So I guess it's St. Sebastian's Parish, but and they were my rivals growing up. But I hear St. Teresa's is the banginest. But there's a place in Shadyside whose name I forget. It starts with Saint, if you can believe that, and it's right behind Highland Avenue, where like the Mad Mex and Noodles and Company is. But I ate it after Pitt blew out Iowa State. And I got the fish, the mac and cheese, the coleslaw, and then ate a whole box of Thin Mints, and it was legitimately the best meal I had in 2023. So I recommend that one. But honestly, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the mac and cheese at those things too. Just fire mac and cheese. Yeah, I'm sold. I'm looking forward to Friday now.
Go patronize your local church. Buy some fish. Get a couple boxes of Girl Scout cookies because they're gonna be there. They're smart. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Have yourselves a Friday, but just like build out a lot of time because again, these are not restaurants, so there is zero efficiency in getting you your food, but it is gonna smack.
This reminds me that I ordered Girl Scout cookies a few weeks ago and still don't have them, so I need to look into that.
Now that you mention it, I think my sister asked for my order in like early January.
Yeah.
My niece needs to get it together.
I might go to those and like ask to speak to their manager or their troop leader.
You both got finessed. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's like a $7 box of cookies. It's implied.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap this one up. Pitt hoops on the bubble. Squid loves Mountain Dew. Fish fries are back. Thanks for listening. As always, hail loyal sons of Pittsburgh.